All right, it looks like we already have people joining us. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next product club meeting, our January meeting on API tasks. Super excited to have everyone here today. We're going to give everybody a minute or two to get logged in. I know it can take a second to get those Zooms working and firing up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are worldwide. I'd love to hear where you guys are. So please jump in the chat and share a quick little intro about yourself. Who are you? What country are you representing today? What organization, what role? Give us a little indicator of who you are. We're also gonna start our poll questions a little early too, just to make sure we have everything firing correctly. So I'm gonna deploy a quick poll question here. But again, as you're joining us, please jump in and share your introduction. All right, and everybody should see that poll question pop up. This is more of a check your understanding of what you think API tasks is. So go ahead and let's test this out, see if it's working. I appreciate all the engagement on this. Again, we'd love for you to share a quick little intro and hello in the chat. If you already have any questions, our Q&A is also open. So let's start adding your questions into that Q&A too. I see some answers already coming in through the poll. Thank you so much for sharing your responses. This is really helpful for us as we get started. Again, I'm just going to give it another minute for everyone to get logged in. I see those numbers trickling up. This is really exciting. Thank you again for all of those who are just joining us. Share your intro in the chat. We have a little warm-up poll here. And then we're also, Q&A is open. So go ahead and start adding your questions into the Q&A. Let's see what we have in the chat. Oh, Sweden, that's exciting. New Jersey, I know you guys just got a bunch of snow, that East Coast. Poland. This is really exciting. Thank you for sharing all of your intros in here. Florida, I think a lot of us are wishing we were in Florida right now and getting some warmth. Arizona, Chicago.
We got a global crowd here today.
We do. This is really exciting. Thank you all for joining us. All right, I want to maximize all of the time that we can with the awesome product leaders we have with us today. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. Just a quick reminder, chat is open throughout all of this. Sorry, I was just making sure I had my poll closed there. And actually, I'll switch to the next slide to get us started. Just a few quick reminders. These sessions are recorded. We will be sharing a very comprehensive recap after each of these sessions. I'll also make sure you have the recap from our previous session. We kicked off these meetings in December and talked about document automation and Gen AI. So I want to make sure you have that. So we'll record these sessions, do a comprehensive recap. Our chat is open. We encourage you to leverage that for any type of peer collaboration. The emojis, the thumbs up, all of that fun stuff is in there. You should be able to reply to each other as well. Most importantly, our Q&A. So we have two product experts that are on this call that have been dedicating their time to API tasks. This is your time to ask any and all questions. They are eager to get your questions. So please enter those questions in the chat or in the Q&A. Ooh, I just made a mistake, Q&A. And we'll be sure to get to those today. And then feedback is a gift. This is a brand new offering we are sharing through our community. I appreciate all the feedback we got last session. We are extending the time of these sessions to make sure we get to all of those Q&As, and that's because of the feedback that was shared in our previous meeting. So please continue to give us that feedback. It will really help make these a valuable time. So without further ado, as is customary with these meetings, we're going to get to know our product leaders, Aziz and Vineet. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here so we can do a little quick intro, or as I like to call sizzle, a get to know you. So Vineet, welcome as well. So I'm going to ask just a few quick questions. These are meant to be rapid fire so that we can get to know you. So Aziz, I'm going to start with you. Really simple. What's your current role at Automation Anywhere?
Oh, so I'm the Senior Director of Product and Automation Anywhere. My Charter is the API platform, so I'm responsible for API tasks and all the integrations that we build on top of the platform to make it easier for you to build API automations on the platform.
Perfect. Vineet, go for it.
Hi, everyone. Excited to meet all of you. I work alongside Aziz on the API platform. So everything that Aziz does, I try and support it. Yeah.
All right. So this was a fun question that we asked in our last meeting, and I think I'm going to be asking it in all of our meetings moving forward. When you were young, what was your dream job? I want to see if we maybe start to have a trend formulate. Our big trend last meeting was that everybody had thought they were going to be police officers. Aziz, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I was always playing with trains, choo-choo
Oh,
trains, and I wanted to drive the choo-choo train. That was my goal.
train conductor.
But
I
I
like
but I
it.
was one of those kids that like to break things apart, put things together. So I ended up a lot of time, taking apart the engine and putting things back together. So I suppose that kind of led me to engineering at some point.
Okay, train conductor. I like it. Everyone that's joining our meeting today, what did you want to be when you grew up? Let's add it to the chat. I'm curious to see what our audience was interested in when they were young. Vineet, what about you?
I wanted to be a pilot, just like Matt, who just pinged that he wanted
Oh,
to be a pilot too. Yeah, I'm nowhere close to being a pilot, but the product I work nowadays, it's called the Automation Copilot, which gives me a satisfaction that
I
that I'm
like
still
this.
running a
You become
pilot.
a
Yeah.
co-pilot at least. That's good.
I like this. All right. Aziz, what's the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
I think the best career advice that I ever received is, just to be curious and listen to others, right? So I think that played dividends to me along the way as I explored new areas of innovation, as I explored new career tracks, and so on. So I advise everybody to do that.
I like that. Vineet?
A career advice as well as something when I was in academics. I tend to have a shorter memory. So somebody advised me to write anything that I read. So
Mm.
I think that's been working wonders for me. So whenever I read something, I go back and write it and try to write it in simple words, just like an ELI 5 explanation. So I think that's a great advice that I received.
As a former teacher, I love that. It's a great way to consume knowledge, do it in different forms. I do the same and find the same result. I love that you mentioned that and highlighted that. All right, a little bit of fun. Our last question. Aziz, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Okay. Vineet, sweet or savory?
Savory, yeah.
Savory. Okay, we have a divide. I'm gonna have to go on the savory side myself. Audience, are you a sweet or a savory? Let's see who wins this debate, the divide. Oh, I see
Oh,
we're getting a
nice.
lot of different responses. All right, without further ado, I do want to jump into the topic at hand, and I'm going to be handing the mic over to Vineet to go ahead and share an intro into what API Tasks is and a demo.
Yeah, actually, I'll let Aziz share the
Okay.
slides
Yeah, let
first,
me
and
share
then
the
I'll
slide.
go to the demo.
Are you seeing my slide, you guys? All right. So what is API task? I think we asked that question in the poll earlier, and I think roughly about a three-fourths of you or 75% of you are on the right tracks. API task is actually a way for you to build and design, build and deploy your automations completely in the cloud, right? There is no on-prem infrastructure for this. And the way you do that is essentially the same as the way that you actually build your bot automations today, right? So you go to the bot editor and you build your bots. There is now an API editor in the product that will allow you to build API automations. And once you do that, you bring it to the process composer and use it in an end-to-end process. The API task that you build is going to have a set of packages that are going to be a subset of all the packages that you find in the A360 platform. And primarily because these automations run on Linux containers in the cloud, they're going to be limited to some of the Windows packages that we have today that have Windows dependencies. So you're not going to be able to use some of those. So when you're building automations that use REST, SOAP, integrations with iPaaS, any kind of cloud applications like G Suite, Microsoft Office, your ERP applications that run in the cloud, CRMs like Salesforce, ServiceNow, SharePoint, Workday, all of these are fair game. You can build your automations all and run them all in the cloud. The additional advantage is now that we have a lot of generative AI packages, right? That use large language models from OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. These are all compatible with API tasks. So you can run a subset of all your automations today purely in the cloud without any on-prem footprint. What is the benefit of that? You're going to reduce your expenditure on on-prem infrastructure. There's no Windows desktops, no VM maintenance cost as it pertains to API tasks. There's no configuration or resource management. All of this is done in our cloud infrastructure and managed by us. And it's elastic in scale. So as your needs grow with regards to your automation, scalability is elastic in the cloud, right? So you can take advantage of that. The other benefit that API Task provides is fast data access. You will see in the demo that Vineeth is going to go through that the access to data is instantaneous. The latency we have with API Task is in the range of milliseconds, 40 to 50 milliseconds. So this is really super fast. So for all those co-pilot use cases that you guys are building, this is the ideal way to build your automation. So you build it in the forms, you build it in the process composer, and you run it in Copilot. So this is what the new innovation with the API Task is. Let's talk a little bit about availability. API Task is a cloud-only feature, right? So that means that if you're on-prem, this is not going to be something that you're going to be able to take advantage of right away. We will have a solution from on-prem later on this year, in the later half of this year. But for now, this is a cloud-only feature. With 8.31, which is rolling out this week, in fact, API Task will be available to all those customers that are going to be in the US as well as in Europe. So if you're on AWS Cloud, that's actually another thing we should tell you. This is an AWS Cloud-only feature at this point in time. So for those customers that are in US and Europe, you're going to get this instantaneously as the cloud rollout gets out. In 32, we expand to more regions in Latin America, for example, in AWS Cloud. And in 33, we begin to start rolling it out to GCP Cloud, as well as all the other cloud regions that are remaining. So that gives you a little snapshot of what's happening and what's coming. Let's transition to Vineeth to kind of show us how this all comes together in the product itself.
Yeah, and as Vineet goes ahead and gets his demo ready, I have deployed another poll question. We'd love to get your feedback and your pulse on these questions. There's 3 quick questions here. Go ahead and jump in there and respond. We really do appreciate the feedback. I cannot underemphasize that the feedback that you share in these questions really does impact our development and the future of that development. So the time you do take to complete is really, really helpful. And I do see that we do have some questions coming in. So as Vineet is sharing that demo, Aziz, if you don't mind jumping into that Q&A and potentially answering a few, and then we'll do some live as well. That would be wonderful. All right, back to you, Vineet.
Thanks, Allison. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. So I think you're familiar with this interface. It's your control room. The version I'm on right now is 8.31, so which is the latest release that we just did. API tasks. You just heard Aziz what API tasks are, how they are executed, etc. Right? Now I'll quickly show you how you can create an API task. You create an API task just like you create a task bot, right? You go to create new and you have this new option called API task, right? When you give it a name and then click create and edit, you will land into the API task editor. And this is where you build the logic inside of your API task, right? On your left, you see all of these packages that are compatible to run on cloud. These packages do not rely on any Windows files. They are not having any file dependencies. So they are compatible to execute purely in the cloud, right? So Building the API task is very simple. You just drag and drop your command actions like this, and then you just basically configure them. And then once you're done configuring, you just save it, right? So this is how you build an API task. So that was just a sample for you, but you would actually drag a lot of other actions and then configure it and then call your API task from either a UI or through a backend, right? Both options are available. Now, I'd also like to show you a quick process here, right? So I have a process here in which it relates to an employee time off scenario, right? We all take time offs. And in this process, what we've done is we've made it simple for employees to apply for time offs. We've also made it simple for their managers to approve these time off requests, right? So it starts with an employee landing on a welcome page, and then the welcome page looks something like this, right? And then the employee basically selects some options. So they basically select the dates of their time off, the reason for the time off, and then they send the time off request to their manager, right? So this is the form that they see where they have to make certain selections, right? Let me get that open here for you. Typically, companies use Workday or some kind of an HR system for tracking time off requests, right? But here, in this case, we are using Workday, and all that the employee needs to do is input the start date of the time off, the end date, and select a reason of time off, right? And based on that, that information is enough for us to then go to Workday and initiate a time off request. And how do we do that? This is powered by API tasks, right? So if I go over to the form rules here, I have created two rules. These rules are meant to invoke API tasks, do some automation in the background, bring back the response back to the user in real time, and the user can see the response of the automation right here without having to close and reopen the form. So that's the magic, and that's the power of API tasks for you. And all of this is done, mind you, without having to connect any on-prem infrastructure to your control rooms, right? So in this case, if I go over to the rule number 1, what I'm saying is whenever the user clicks on the request time off button, we call an API task named submit request API task. The API task takes a couple of inputs, and then it gives an output, the output being the reference ID of the time off request from Workday, right? So what's happening is the API task goes to Workday, talks to Workday using APIs, and then generates a time off requests, a request on behalf of the employee, and brings back the time off request ID in real time, right? So that's what happens in this form. Going further along, once the employee has submitted the time off request, it then is his or her manager's job to approve or reject it. Hopefully approve it, not reject it, right? So the approval form looks something like this, right? So the manager sees the employee's email ID, manager's email ID. All of these have been retrieved automatically by the API tasks. They'll also see a time off reason here. They'll see the start date, end date, and then they're basically going to approve this request based on the information that's made available here, right? As simple as that. And once that's done, that's the end of the story. There's additional steps here, which basically send a Teams notification to the employee stating whether the request was approved or whether it was denied. And finally, we also allow the user or the employee to do some mundane tasks, which we typically do when we all go for vacations, right? So setting auto replies, adding a vacation reminder on your email signature, or blocking your calendar so that nobody invites you to meetings during your time off, etc. So all of those possibilities are possible. And then all those things can also be automated using API tasks. And employees can just, on click of a button, manage their time off requests. So that's a developer persona view for all of you, right? Next, I'm going to show you a live demo of this entire process that you saw just now, but I'd like to get your thoughts in the chat, what you think of this process, if you have any queries, or if you are good to go with the demo, right?
Vineet, how about you go ahead and jump into that demo? We're getting some wonderful questions, both in the chat and Q&A. Aziz, thank you for jumping in and answering some of those. I do want to make sure we get some time to answer some of those live. I think we're seeing some similar themes that we'll probably want to chat about. So Vineet, if you want to go ahead and switch to that demo, then we can jump right into Q&A. I also launched a poll question related to some of the demo and pieces of information shared. Thank you again for those jumping in and sharing your feedback as Vineet gets set up here.
Absolutely. Sure, Alison. Well, this demo is not like one of your typical demos that you do using bots, right? So API tasks have the ability to seamlessly embed themselves inside of Copilot. And when I say Copilot, it's the automation Copilot, which can embed itself in any web application powered by iframes or even OEM plugin that Automation Anywhere has, right? So what you're going to see right now is the process that I just showed you. I'm going to demo the entire process inside of Microsoft Teams. You heard it right. Now you don't need to go to Workday, log into Workday, traverse through a bunch of pages, finally get to the time off requests page, and then submit your request, right? All you need to do is come to Workday and then, start your process right within Workday and end it within Workday as well. So let me go to my Microsoft Teams here. And as you can see here, I have the automation copilot embedded in Teams. And one of the processes that I have here is request time off, right? So this is the process that all employees could get access to, but it can also be controlled using access control. Let's say you want to provide this process only to a certain group of employees. You can easily manage that using our Copilot configurations, right? So for now, I'm going to kickstart this process called request time off. And what I see here, the first screen is, it's asking me to confirm if this is my email address. Indeed, it is. It is my email address. So what happens when I click on the checkbox yes and go ahead is an API task takes my email address, it goes to Workday, it retrieves my employee ID and my manager's email ID. It also retrieves the country where I'm located, because based on the country, there would be different time of reason codes, right? Some countries have, different reason codes. So based on the country, we retrieve specific reason codes from Workday. Let's see how we do that. I'll click on submit here. And what happens next is, there we go. In no time, the API task was able to bring me back to this form where I select my start date and end date, right? Let's say I want to select a date in June, and let's say 27th of June. You might call me that I'm a very good planner. Yes, I am. Next, here, the reason for time off, this is a drop-down. And as you can see, the drop-down has been populated with 5 time off reasons, right? And these reasons are specific to the country I'm employed in, right, which is India. So all of these reason codes are retrieved by the API task in real time. So I'll select personal time off. The API task has already retrieved my manager's name here, so I know who the approver is. And then I just click on request time off. And what happens when I click on this is an API task, another API task in the background takes all of these inputs, goes to Workday, creates a time off request using Workday's SOAP APIs, right? And then it has retrieved the time off request that it just created in real time. So if I need, I can make a note of it, or I can always come back and view it later for my reference, right? Now that's it. My job is done. My time off request has been sent to my manager. And next, my manager would be receiving a notification on their Microsoft Teams saying your employee has requested this time off, and then you can go ahead and approve it. Before I go over to the manager's view, I will quickly go to the Workday and actually show you that there is a Workday request generated in Workday, right? This is the one, right? 58 seconds ago, I submitted a Workday request for 27th of June, Thursday, with personal time off as the reason code, right? So the API task was actually go to Workday, get all of these information submitted, and brought me back the time, the reference ID in real time, right? So all of this in a couple of seconds, which otherwise would have taken you at least a minute or two, right? So going further, let's say my manager receives a notification on Teams, right? Once I submit this, right? When the manager opens the notification, they would see something like this, right? They would see there's a time off request by so-and-so employee. They are the approver. This is the reason for the time off. And these are the dates when the employee wants to take a time off, right? They are happy with the time off request. They say, enjoy your time off, right? And then they select approve and submit, right? So what happens next is that's the end of the process, basically. Next, what happens is the employee is notified on Microsoft Teams in no time that their leave request has been approved, right? And I'll quickly go over to Microsoft Teams to show you the notification. This is the notification that I received just now, 9:29, which is my local time. And as you can see, the employee gets this notification and then they're happy. If they want, they can go back to the process, and there are a couple of additional options that they can do, right? Now that their time of request is approved, they can do a couple of next steps, right? These are mundane steps that all of us do. Blocking your calendar, right? Or scheduling auto reply on your emails, or sending out of office email to your stakeholders and colleagues. Or you can also add a vacation reminder on your email signature, just to pre-inform everybody that you're going to be off on so and so day, right? So all of these are possible, and I'm not going to do that right now, but as you can see, the possibilities are endless that you can achieve with API tasks in real time.
All
So
right.
that was the demo. Yeah. Alison,
Sorry.
back to you.
Sorry to cut you off there, Vinny. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have had some amazing questions. If you don't mind stopping to share your screen so it can be all of us on the screen. As people are completing this poll question, we have an actual big roadmap poll question here we could really use your feedback on. There's a list of several different things that are under consideration. What are your top 2 favorites? Select them. Let's get some votes and see where people have interest in seeing what's next and upcoming. We do also have a free response there if there's any type of direct feedback you want to provide. This is a great opportunity to provide that feedback. Aziz, you've been in answering some questions. Before we start going to some specific questions, is there anything you want to clarify that maybe you've seen kind of pop up in some of these questions that's important?
Yeah, I think there were some questions about licensing and so on, right? So Just want to make sure everybody understands. So everybody that's an Automation 360 customer will have access to API tasks depending on when it rolls out within your cloud region, right? So if you're in North America and Europe, you're going to see that coming out pretty soon this week. In fact, when all the cloud rollouts are happening. So you're going to get that. Now, as far as licensing is concerned, you're going to all get some amount of executions, right? You're going to get 100 executions per control room for your deployment as free. So this is for you to try out. You try some use cases. Make sure this is something that you can leverage across. And then there is obviously licensing for it, right? So you're going to have the ability to either purchase our advanced the A360 Plus package, which will have this already included and bundled in it with 50,000 API task executions and parallelism, 10 concurrent executions is going to be there. You can also buy it a la carte, for example. So if you're not going to opt for the advanced package or the A360 Plus package, then you can also buy it a la carte as an overage SKU that gives you 50,000 API task executions with 10 concurrencies built in. And you can buy multiples of those packs as well. So that hopefully will answer some of those questions. But for all the pricing related questions, feel free to reach out to your sales executive.
All right, thank you for providing that summary. I'm keeping the poll question up. I'm seeing some responses come in. We have a few leading items calling API task as an API endpoint, cloud file read write. Seem to be the trending responses. Please, this is your opportunity to make an impact on that roadmap again. So we really encourage you to jump in there and complete that poll question. I'm only at 40% response. I'd love to get a higher response rate. So I'm going to keep this up as we continue to get some answers and questions here. All right, I have the Q&A open. I know there were some questions in chat, so I'm going to go back and forth as much as we can. We do have a few minutes. Just want to put a big asterisk here. If we don't get to your question today, we want to get you answers. So similarly to what we did last time, I will work with Aziz and Benit. We'll collect those responses and share them in the recap as well. It's really important, and we all value and want to make sure that you get the input you need to be successful in this. So the first question we have in the Q&A, how to promote the code from one CR to another CR through APIs. Vinit or Aziz, can one of you jump in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's essentially something that's available today in the product, right? I don't think that has anything specific to do with API tasks. Maybe Vinit can shed some more light.
Yeah, I believe we do have integration with GitHub, and you can promote your code to GitHub and then use the GitHub CI/CD automation to expand your code to any other environment.
All right, perfect. And if we missed something with that question, the chat is open, so please let us know if there's something specific that we may have missed with that question that you were looking to get insight on. Next one, how to create, edit, delete users roles by API.
I can take that.
Yeah.
So we do offer a user management API in our control room. You can access it by going to your control room /Swagger. And then you will come across an API called user management, using which you can programmatically create, edit, and delete users.
Okay.
What I would add is that you can also, use those API endpoints as part of your API task logic, right? So essentially you can use a REST package to essentially call all of those directly and build an automation that way.
Okay. Moving right along, how do you add permissions to a role via API? I'm guessing that's similar to what you just mentioned. I know you need the permission IDs. However, I do not see a fetch permissions API or the equivalent in Swagger AI docs. So a little bit more specific.
Yeah, go ahead, Vinit, if you know the answer, but I was going to say we can look that up and get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I don't know either, so we can come back on this one.
All right, so Karen, we will follow up with you on that one via our recap. So we have that recorded. We have all these questions. We'll make sure to get some responses to them. All right, do packages have to exist for all applications that you want to integrate, or is there a generic package?
So the generic package is your REST and SOAP, right? So with those, you can call any API. But there are a pretty large list of application packages we have in the product today, including Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, SAP that Vineet kind of talked about earlier, right? So all of these are there, your Google Suites, your Microsoft Offices, and so on. We are also in the process of building a connector builder. What that means is that if you've got an application, whether it's a custom application or a web application that we don't currently have a package for, you'll be able to build that connector yourself. And this is coming out soon in 8.33, right? So if you guys are interested in taking a look at that as a beta, we'll have that much earlier. So please reach out to Vineet and we'll work with you on that.
All right. Can you explain how to date and from date values in the form, as I can see there is one input variable which takes dates?
Sure. In the demo I explained, I think I requested timer for just 1 day, but you can actually request it for a range of days. And what we do in the backend is we prepare a request object using the start date and end date, and that is how we submit the time of request for those dates.
All right. This is related to licensing, just further clarification. Do all employees using these time off forms need automation anywhere licensing in order to utilize something like this time off request system?
Yes. Yeah, you will need our automation platform license in order to build these use cases for sure. And it doesn't have to be on Teams. It could be anywhere, right? You could potentially put it on any web application using Copilot.
Right. We did show the API test, so that must have been when we were getting started. How employee email address is autopilot? Is it hard? How is the employee email address auto-populated? Is it hard-coded?
It's not hard-coded. One of the beauty of Process Composer is it knows the context of the user that initiates the process. So you can just read it from a global variable in Process Composer.
All right. Can we use API task under regular task code, or is it only applicable under ARI? And then we just talked about the licensing scenario. So
Yeah.
just clarifying the task code, or is it only applicable under ARI?
So in 8.31, you can run it only from Copilot, or rather ARI, as you were saying, right? So you can use it in the form, you can use it in a Process Composer, but essentially it's meant to be orchestrated through ARI or Process Composer. What you will get in the future is the ability to call these yourself directly as a run now, right, in the product itself, or be able to schedule it, or be able to call it as an endpoint, right? Those are all coming in subsequent releases.
All right. This is probably related, and I think this is a great question to ask. We're generating buzz and interest here. Is there any way that people can try this out and see what it's like?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, there is going to be a free trial available with 8.31. So any customer that is in the US or in Europe, you will get a basic entitlement for using for the use of API task out the box, right? So go ahead and use it as much as you can.
All right. I know we're hitting time, Aziz, for your time.
Yes.
I know, Vineet, you were able to hold on and answer a few other questions. So Aziz, thank you so much for joining us. Vineet is going to hang around for a few more minutes for us to get through a few more of these questions. And then, as I mentioned, any question we don't get to today, we'll be sure to follow up in the next week in our recap. So Aziz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Vineet, this is a question that generated a little bit of collaboration too. How is this API task different from REST SOAP API calls we have in TaskBot? All I can see, it might be quicker, but it might not be significantly different.
Okay, that's a good observation there. The fundamental difference between an API task and a task bot is you do not have to worry about the infrastructure where the API task executes. As soon as you're done building the API task, configuring your automation, you can just launch it and it's going to execute on our cloud machines. So we've taken all of the, tasks about maintaining your infrastructure, upgrading it, patching it, all of those things go away from you. So that's the major difference. The other difference is we've made it simpler for even non-professional developers to create API tasks and consume API tasks within their automations. What I mean by that is traditionally, whenever there's APIs involved, especially to integrate with multiple systems, companies tend to engage specialist middleware teams, right? Teams that are specializing in handling API interactions, managing through a middleware, through a gateway, or something of that sort. But what we've done is we've empowered an RPA developer to do that without having to worry about the complexities of calling the API, maintaining the middleware infrastructure layer. So those are the two key takeaways.
All right. This one also got a few upvotes. How do the API tasks handle application credentials?
Well, now API tasks belong to the same platform which is compliant with SOC protocol, SOC 2, and all of the GDPR protocols, right? So you can store your credentials in our credential vault where they are securely stored and encrypted. So every time you retrieve data or you keep the data there, it's all encrypted. So you can be rest assured your credentials are safe.
All right. I know we have a few other questions, but we have hit time, unfortunately. It looks like we may need to have another consideration of extending this time further. Thank you, everyone, for your really thoughtful questions here. As I mentioned, the ones we did not get to, we will still be answering and we'll be sharing those. A few quick reminders. I saw somebody ask, are these sessions going to be reoccurring? Yes, they are going to be the second Tuesday of every month. We will be having a new RSVP registration system going live in February. I apologize for the inconvenience right now of having to RSVP for each individual session. That last one you need to RSVP for is that February session, and then I'll be sharing that new system in our February meeting. That meeting is already live on our platform or on our community platform. I'm going to go ahead and share that RSVP right now, direct RSVP. Actually, I'm going to share two things. We did pull together a getting started guide for API tasks. So if you click that getting started link, I just put in the chat. Oh, I think I shared it to the wrong people. Hold on, let me get it to everyone. Uh-oh, having Monday Zooms or Tuesday Zooms. There we go. All right, getting started guide. That will get you access to the API existing documentation. We have a ton of resources coming out over the next month as we do the .3.1 release. And the RSVP for our next meeting is there as well. Vineet, thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will get that recap in our community, and I also will be directly sharing it with anyone who attended our session today. Again, appreciate the collaboration and the questions, and we'll get those responses to you soon. Thank you everyone so much for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day or end of day, and really do appreciate the conversation. All right. Thank you,
Thank you all
everyone.
for your time.